that.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Let's get this a little bit more light. Look at that, now we're cooking. So today's video, chain drive. We're converting our belt drive to a chain drive, something I've been looking forward to for a long time. We had a chain on the Sporty, I loved it. We wanted to do a lot of stuff that we've done to the lowrider on our Dyna Street Bike, which is our first motorcycle, but we never had the funds to do it or the know-how where we would have to pay the dealership. Little by little, we've been coming into our own and learning more and more about the motorcycle, and I cannot be more excited and elated to get where we're going with the lowrider. If this is your first time coming across the channel, welcome. Be sure to check out all the links below. They are links to the Patreon, the Teespring store, as well as any of the items that you see in the video today. And anytime you do click on those links and purchase something, it comes back directly to support the channel as well as the Patreon. For those $5 a month or the equivalency of a coffee a month, you can help support the channel, bring you more rad stuff as well as more track day stuff, because we're slowly diving in. First things first, we got to remove all this so we have a clean workspace to look at. This is the Elite Touring's Innovations Tour Pack paired with a performance case or brackets. Be sure to check them out. The link is going to be down below. That they were kind enough to partner up with the fxlr on Burgundy build, and we have a fxlr Road Glide now. That's a lot of names for your bike, Connor. I know, I just get excited. But that a lot of people always ask me, where are the bags? They do not sell the bags themselves on their site. They only sell the brackets and the items for the bags, but you can utilize their systems for just about any Pelican bag that you can. Check them out on Instagram at Elite Touring Innovations. Let's jump on. The very first step that you're going to want to do is drain your primary. You're going to get all the fluids out, and then you can start working on removing your shifter as well as your foot pegs and remove the outer primary. Be sure to check with your owner's manual to see exactly what you're going to need. Some of the items that we did get is going to be your outer primary gasket, your inner primary gasket. We also got some inner primary bolts. Oh dude, that is black. E-buddy. We didn't change it to 10,000 because we've been waiting on the chain kit, because since we're going to be draining it, we don't want to drain it and then just have to refill it, but that is pretty dark. And then just always inspect your drain plug. It has a magnet on the end. It allows you to see any shavings. It doesn't look like there's any major shavings. It looks like the same old standard micro shavings, if that's a thing. I'm not too sure what they're called. Now, I always end up leaving the top one so that way it just doesn't fall, and then whenever I remove it, I bring the derby cover with the top screw. And you're also going to want to replace this gasket that's around the derby cover. That way you have a fresh gasket with the fresh primary inner and outer gasket. So while the primary is draining, we're going to go ahead and remove our shifter knob. And it also comes with this gasket that goes between your shifter and your primary. So just be sure not to misplace that. Repiece a lot of this stuff together so that way I don't end up missing washers or nuts. But should you accidentally misplace some of these, you can just replace them. These are this is a 1/2 inch nut and then a 1/2 inch bolt. The length I'm not too sure about. This is where we come into an area of preference where I prefer to put the drain plug back into the outer portion of the primary. That way it's plugged up. We'll get some thread sealant and a new O-ring set, ready to go, and I don't have to remember to reapply it and tighten to spec. Next step, go ahead and remove your primary bolts, all the ones out here. What I like to do is I'll draw it out, the primary, so that way I know exactly what bolt goes where onto here, and then there's no mistaking. And when it comes time to remount these bolts and tighten them and torque them down, there is a sequence that you're supposed to do. Check your owner's manual. We will drop it whenever it comes time to it, but that way you have an idea before you get into this. And there we have all our bolts for our primary. Plug and play, wrench by numbers, that way you know where they go. And the next step is going to go ahead to loosen your primary. You are not going to knock this off because we have our shift shaft right here that's going to hold the primary, but as you can see, we've already broke the seal and there's already some oil here on the bottom. So just some love taps around the primary, That one opened up pretty quick on this side. There it is. Now on your older models like Dynas and Sportsters, if you haven't ever gotten into it, if say it's so many years, like 5+, 10 years, whatever, that it might be a little bit more of an effort to pop this if it's never been removed. So then you're just gonna go ahead and, there's a lot of oil left in there apparently. And then just set this aside somewhere safe. Another quick tip, you have these small inserts that go into your primary. That I always like to remove these. This one goes towards the front, and I will just put them inside the outer primary that I'll be setting to the side, so that way I don't misplace those. I accidentally move them. You don't need to, it's just personal. That's something that I do personally. And the next step is gonna do is to remove your compensator with your clutch hub. And one thing that you want to make sure you do is keep this intact, your chain tensioner, because if you don't, it's kind of a pain in the butt to get it back to where it needs to be. And so what I'll do is I'll run a zip tie underneath and I'll tuck it in underneath the chain so that way it stays compressed. And then whenever we put everything back in, you'll have your compensator and your clutch hub come out as a unit along with this chain, and then you can just have your chain tensioner on the side, but as long as it's zip tied together so it maintains that pressure and that compression. We went ahead and removed this plate off our clutch. You have the snap ring. This part is a lot easier with the buddy unless you have the proper snap ring pliers. Ours aren't the most ideal. That we weren't able to get a good purchase on the snap ring, so we ended up having to stick a really small flathead screwdriver, and we ended up bending this. It's going to be very hard to see, but oh, you can kind of see it. It's wonked out. So what we're going to do, instead of putting it back in there like that, we're going to end up going to Harley and getting a new one of these so that we were prime and proper whenever we do the install. This is going to be a 1 3/16 socket that we're going to install in there. This is reverse thread, and this is a reverse thread. So righty is loosey and lefty is tighty on this one, and then off it comes. So here's your clutch assembly. We're going to set this to the side. And now what we're going to be doing is removing these bolts so that we can get into the inner primary. So in order to fully remove your primary, you're going to have to go to the other side and get an extension to remove the bolts that are holding the primary to your starter. Totally forgot about that, so you have to go in on the other side, and there's going to be two of them. One here on the front of the primary and one here near to the back end. You may have to end up removing your seat to remove your battery to access those. That way it's a little easier, but we're going to try to do it without it. So here's a quick look of what I like to do. I end up having some cardboard laying around from a couple things I ordered. So I always put the primary, I reassemble the derby cover on top of it, and we also have the drain plug underneath it. So that way everything is kept together. Same thing with the compensator. We have the compensator here, all the plates that were beneath it. We have the screw right there. We have the chain tensioner here zip tied, so that way it keeps its shape and form. We have the chain that goes around the compensator to the clutch, and we have the clutch all together. We did not remove anything. Here is the nut that holds it to the inner primary and to your shaft. So everything is here. Now we did end up having to remove our seat so we get access to our battery cover, and then we look to see if we needed to remove the battery because it's the pain on these Softails. So here is one of the screws way back in there that you're going to have to loosen in order to get your inner primary off. And then the other one is, you won't be able to see, but it's just enough room. If I sneak behind this negative cable, hopefully we're going to try that and see if we can go ahead and remove the bolt. But similar to the outer primary, you have your shift shaft that is holding it. So we were able to, with a ball Allen and an extension, there is your inner primary. So we just placed our inner primary back in that same box with our outer primary, so it's all together again. And now we're gonna go ahead and remove, we're gonna go ahead and loosen these Allen bolts that hold the castle nut, and then remove that, and then you should be ready to rock and roll. And then you're gonna get this. This is Jim's tool. It helps remove it. We're back. This has been a nightmare. Mostly just because the tools that we had weren't really working. We have this sprocket nut right here. This is not reverse thread. A lot of your Dynas and Sportsters, I'm pretty sure it's Dynas, I think Trey's was, are reverse thread here. But our clutch hub nut is reverse thread, which was good. And then this one's right hand thread, which I'm not sure. I guess maybe it secures it. Who's to say? It's been a while since I messed with the Dyna, so the Dyna may be similar, but just the opposite. And we tried everything. We had some C-clamps. If I can find the other C-clamp. So we bought some C-clamps for the old wives' tail trick. It's not gonna be, it can be kind of hard to see, but essentially you get this C-clamp, you hold it onto this sprocket, the belt pulley, and then there's this, I forgot what this is called, but pretty much where the frame is supported by this random little thing, and it's supposed to hold it in place. It's not supposed to go anywhere. This one got bent. You can kind of see it, little U. This one really got bent. This is Harbor Freight, so it's like $10 for both. So I'm guessing it's not 100% manufactured steel. So because our impact straight wasn't working. This is from Harbor Freight. This is the Chicago Electric Power Tool. This is your $40 one. I think it's about 200 foot-pounds of torque. We were here for 30 minutes, just and it wasn't working. We even hit the owner's manual. We even tried the old breaker bar onto this, but the problem with that, I'll just show you real quick. Throw this on here. And this is one of those Jim's tools right here. I forgot the size, but you're gonna need it. And so what it does is it spins the rear tire, even though it's in gear, so you can't bust it loose. Now that's stuck on there. We ended up going to Home Depot and scored ourselves a Milwaukee. This is corded again just because the cordless are like $5 million. We're back. We got Oscar doing a cameo. Everyone say what's up to Oscar.
What's up, everybody?
What was he doing? Oh. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and remove the sprocket nut. We did some workouts. So we're just gonna... Oh, there it is, baby. Look at that. Just like that. Beautiful, easy breezy girl, cover girl. Shout out to Central for coming in clutch because we were not able to get this done. This had tons and tons of red Loctite from what it seems like. It seems to have kind of been seized and torqued to 5 million pounds of torque. It was just a pain in the nuts, huge pain. Instead of balling out and spending tons of money on impacts that we're probably gonna use once or twice in a year, 2 years, 3 years, decided, you know what? Let's swallow the pride a little bit, admit defeat, and take it to Central. It's a huge shout out to Central. And so now what we're gonna do, now that we have that gone, we are gonna go ahead, loosen the axle on the rear wheel, remove the axle, remove the wheel so that we get the belt pulley off. We're gonna remove the belt. Let's do it. Front sprocket, PBI, this is 25 tooth. Where we're going, we don't need belts. Well, it got stuck, so I wasn't able, where we're going, we don't need belts. So unfortunately, we decided to cut it, we kind of forced ourselves to just because we don't want to do any extra work. So now we are committed 100% because in order to remove this, the only option we could have done, removed this swing arm bolt, but on the other side, there's the plate for the bunking, there's a plate for the exhaust, there's the exhaust. It would have been a whole lot more work. Again, there you could use that mentality of do it the right way, you want to do it another way, but we did it the other way this time. Where's that red Loctite at? Now we're gonna torque it with the impact. And on the M8s, it is a right-hand thread. The manual states for 100 foot-pounds of torque initial, followed by 35 foot-pounds. So I think we definitely got the 100. Yeah, that's pretty much as it goes. All right. And then you would install this. Oh, dog, look at that. No shaving necessary. That's as good as it's gonna get. And then just apply a blue Loctite to these bad boys. Lock plate screws is 90 to 120 inch-pounds, yes. So now what we're gonna do is jump over to remove the pulley, swap it out for the sprocket. Bam! So torque is 60 foot-pounds initially, followed by 77 to 83. Oh yeah. Bada bing, bada boom. Alright, so now we have the front sprocket on, that's already been torqued at 100 foot-pounds of torque, and then we have the rear sprocket that's already torqued onto the bike. You're going to do initial foot-pounds, you're going to do initial torque of 60 foot-pounds, and then you're going to bump it up to 77 to 83 foot-pounds, somewhere in that range. We did 80 foot-pounds. And we have the wheel mocked up again, that whenever you are installing a chain kit, you're gonna wanna push your wheel, your axle, as far forward as possible. So that way over the life of the chain, as it expands and stretches, you'll have that room to go back. So that way you're not setting it all the way to the end, and then all of a sudden you sag and your chain is too loose. So that way you just have more room to play with, and you're gonna stretch your bang for your buck. So that's gonna be the next part, is fitting the chain, going where it is, and again, we're gonna be bumping this up forward. Oh yeah, so you're gonna want to torque these down in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the torque, so it's gonna be 26 to 28 foot-pounds of torque. Alright, so what we're going to do is measure the chain, and we're also checking clearance here in the front to make sure it's not rubbing, and it looks like we have about 2 fingers. So is that 2 inches? And then we're just going to mark it where the master link is going to go. It's going to cover, so that's going to give us some slack to tighten it, and there's plenty of slack. So what we're going to do is mark that we need to shave this one off. Alright, so we had to run inside real quick to grab our PPE. These are just heat wave visual glasses, since we are going to be cutting, grinding. So we're just gonna, pretty much what we're gonna do is cut this top end so that we can punch it through. You only need to cut 1/2 of it. Now if you don't have a chain kit, you can also just do a normal punch and just punch it out. What we're going to do is just use our chain kit since we have one. And with these, you just want a little bit of the punch to come out to show, and then you'll just tighten it. So what we're going to do, it's going to be hard to see, but pretty much what we're going to position is this bottom hole. We're going to position it on one of these outer. You're just going to make sure that hole lines up, sits in there, and then you're just going to apply pressure to that rivet that you kind of ground out. It's definitely hard to see. So pretty much after you start giving it some pressure, you can check to see if it's coming out. But again, the chain's right here. It's hard to picture it, to see it. So I felt a small crick, and I can start seeing it get pushed in. And keep on dropping it. And just continue to do it until it gets punched out. And if you feel a lot of tension, chances are that you're not fully on the bolt, and it is a lot easier to grind it off. The first time we ever did this, we bent a couple of these tips because we didn't know to grind it off. And again, you could, if you don't have the chain already on the bike or on a vise where you hold it and you just get a punch and then a hammer and you just punch this end out, and it'll be a lot easier, a lot quicker. But this is the method that we've been doing it. This is the method that we know. So we're just going to continue doing it. So here is the portion that was just driven out. Now this comes off. You have an O-ring that was out there. It's going to be on the inner or the outer portion of this. And you can save that since this is brand new. What we're going to do is just go ahead and wax this right here so that way it has it. Or lube. I can't remember what this is. We're just going to go ahead and say wax. So that way that's waxed, and then that's pretty much all you need. And then you run it up and you'd marry it to the other end. Okay. What I do is push. We have an anvil, a flat that we're going to be putting on this side, and then driving it to the side with the holes. Dude, that legit freaked me out for a second. So pretty much what we're doing right now is pressing the plates together. But I also want to make sure that they're getting threaded through, not just getting mashed. So I'm gonna back it off and just give it a check. So we want to push them until they're kind of on the other end. Alright, so there is a method to this to check for your distance between these chain tensioner screws. But we're going to do the tried and true method to start us off, and we're going to just do so many counts per side. 5. Now we're going to do additional 5 and go to the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I can see the chain slowly tightening. So we're going to do 5 on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.